There is nothing scarier to many Americans than the idea that every conversation is being monitored by someone. In most cases, they believe the federal government. Those who deal in data will tell you there is nothing more critical to ferreting out the bad guys than being able to listen and watch without fear of reprisal or government interference. But President Obama has a new way of thinking on this matter, and one can only wonder if it will hurt an already damaged intelligence effort and maybe even lead us back to the pre-9/11 days. Always a pleasure to welcome into MidPoint our intelligence expert and former CIA analyst, Lisa Ruth, joins us on the show. Good to have you again.
Thank you.
We're going to talk about the president, but we have to begin with the news that's happening today. There purportedly is a video that has been released by ISIS. It shows not the beheading this time, but the burning alive of the captured Jordanian pilot. First thing that strikes me on this right away is beheadings no longer make an impact. They have now ratcheted up the social media and I hate to use this phrase, the marketing side of ISIS terror.
I agree with you, and it's a sad state of affairs, as I was saying earlier to you, that when beheadings don't get our attention anymore. But that's really where we are. The media has stopped when they're with the beheadings. We're not showing the videos anymore, for example. What's happened just with this, the video, which is very well produced, and I'm not even talking about from a, again, horrifyingly awful situation, but it's not just some guy out there with a video camera. This is a production, and they took time putting it together, which is another thing. I think this happened far before today. But there's tons of media stir out there right now. We're talking about this again. ISIS is again back in the front. This will be used as a recruiting tool. And the horror, you know, the idea of a beheading is awful, but when you think about what someone who's being burned alive goes through, the amount of horror that will convey, they're ratcheting it up.
Is there a possibility, though? Well, I guess there is. I'm answering my question, but let's dig into this a little bit, that the savagery that they're showing is going to backfire eventually. And maybe some people will say, look, I get the whole jihad and you're fighting for your religion and your faith, but this is getting far too despicable for us to support.
Sure. And I think for Westerners, it becomes, if you read some of the statements from Japan, for example, the incredible backlash on the West. But I have to go back, and this is a situation that most of us just can't understand. You know, I was in Haiti during a time when they were necklacing people, which you probably remember. You know, you put a tire around someone and set them on fire. And the amount of mob support and violence for this is astounding, how the brain starts to work. This is a situation where these members, their supporters, I don't believe it. I don't believe they're going to go, oh, you guys, we need to back off. Their supporters are operating in something that we just really and truly can't understand.
But the supporters are in a different zone, but I'm talking more specifically about governments, about people sitting on the fence, about saying this is not our fight. Suddenly, it is Japan's fight now, and it is now Jordan's fight, because Jordan has come out today and said, kill our pilot and we'll execute all your prisoners. They will hang all their ISIS captives if the airman hostage is dead. We're now getting other governments who are seeing the brutality and they're experiencing it firsthand.
Yes, I agree with you on Japan. And Japan is an interesting case domestically because this is the one militarily. They have not been involved in a foreign war for, you know, since World War II. So this is a very big change, and I think you're going to see Abe stepping this up he has got to. Jordan, I'm not sure. Domestically in Jordan, if you look at the polls, there's a lot of support, at least even residual support. And there is this idea that even this brutality, the supporters, as we're just saying, say, well, you know, they deserve it. The other thing that's going to happen...
They're still the infidels.
I guarantee, yes, and I guarantee you the other thing that's going to happen, the number one loser here is the Jordan government. People in Jordan are going to be saying, why didn't you get him out? Why did you wait? Did you think ISIS was going to be nice to him?
What about the backlash then from this? If they do come right out and execute all the ISIS captives, what comes to mind immediately is some of these might just be these fly-by-nighters who decided to join ISIS, and ISIS will go, go ahead, don't worry about it.
Most of them aren't even saying they're ISIS unless after they were captured, they were converted from Al-Qaeda to ISIS. The prisoners that they have, the one, for example, that ISIS has demanded to be released, she was a member of Al-Qaeda. She wasn't a member of ISIS. So what you're going to have is, again, this is a paradigm that's very different than what we have. ISIS is going to say, You're going to do it, go ahead and do it, because we will bring down the house, essentially. You execute all these people in jail, you're going to find the bounty on your heads, and we will have more and more recruits from this. This will create sympathy among our supporters. And really, what's the cost to them? These are people already in jail. They're not hurting their fighting force.
All right, stand by, because we have a lot more to cover here, because it is all about nukes in a certain part of the world. And also Jihadi John, a terrorist swap, and that intelligence issue. It's all when we continue right here on MidPoint. Back to international skullduggery and related issues as we welcome back former CIA analyst Lisa Ruth. And yes, there will be a test later to see if everybody knows what skullduggery means. Let's start out on the whole intelligence idea. The president wants to make another change now, where apparently a lot of the information gathered by intelligence would have to be dropped after a certain amount of time. Is this really going to do anything to further hamper intelligence communities who already have their hands tied in so many ways about finding bad guys?
Oh, sure. And this is a PR thing, because really, I think he's trying to do something to make it look like he's made a move here. But in terms of the actual intelligence, again, which we won't debate the ethics of the collection, but for the analysts trying to put this information together, it doesn't just go back a week. This is the whole point. We have to have the ability to go back and look at historic data and put patterns together. And by dropping that information, it's like you're now putting on another blinder here. And it's going to be very difficult. I can tell you, I've already gotten phone calls this morning from people in the intelligence community extremely upset about this and saying, are they just trying to take away all our capabilities? Is that really what the government wants to do? There's a lot of frustration in the intelligence community.
We'll have to dig into that at another time, because we could go on for a long time and figuring if we're back to 9/11 details and 9/11 times. That's awful. Ukraine. More people are dying there today. The president is now talking about trying to back up a little bit again and maybe putting some weapons into the hands of the Ukrainian fighters. Is this really going to make any difference?
It's not going to make a whole lot of difference in terms of the capabilities. You have a situation right now, the rebels, the pro-Russian rebels just got some more money, and they're saying they're going to raise all these troops. Well, that tells me that Russia is reinvigorated in terms of Ukraine. The U.S. is now talking about getting involved again and giving them weapons. What it will do again is escalate the situation, but really it's not going to change the balance of power there. It's not going to change anything. And I think what you have to look at is why Russia is doing it, because this is really not about the rebels in Ukraine or arming the Ukrainians, but it is another interesting example of your friend, Mr. Putin, back on the warpath, really trying to do two things, I think, getting domestic support by expanding the international war. We know that helped him last time. And the second thing is, I think it's putting a little bit more pressure on the EU, which is already under a whole lot of pressure right now with the Greek vote.
Nuclear talks. First of all, wait a minute, nuclear talks in Iran. Sorry, I didn't mean to mention something that's completely useless at this point. But now they're talking about India testing a nuclear missile that can reach Beijing. Wait a minute, all of a sudden things are getting a little out of hand here. This is not just about Iran anymore. This is about America working with India and their nuclear capability now. This is about nukes in different parts of the world that we never thought of before. How out of control is this right now?
Well, and it is interesting to me that Obama was just in India. And trust me, China's going to see that as a very strong sign as well.
Cut the deal.
And you're looking at this, the Asia, again, we're always talking about the Middle East. Well, don't forget Asia. There are so many tensions between China and India historically here. This is not going to help anything. You're going to see, again, more and more pressure, more and more tensions. And the United States is going to be in a situation where we're out there going, oh, hey, guys, stop testing missiles. But, you know, it's not doing anything. And we really are. We're seeing another situation. The Chinese are going to be extremely unhappy, as they should be, frankly. You're testing nuclear weapons that threaten them.
45 seconds left here. Venezuela claiming that Joe Biden is responsible for plotting a coup there. Please make some sense of this.
Yeah, good for, if Biden could do it, I'll give him a lot more credit.
If Joe's out there doing it, everybody be going, go for it, Joe. We're happy for you.
Wow, look at what he can actually do. And again, what this is really about is Maduro is under increasing pressure. He's isolated. The U.S.-Cuba talks have put him in a very bad position. He is now, he's also got an economy that's falling apart, not only because of oil prices, but because of shortages. Look for more Iranian, Russian, and North Korean emphasis on Venezuela. Not good news for the U.S.
No doubt that there's coups being plotted around the world at this very moment as we speak.
We
just don't know if Joe Biden's in charge of it.
You see, things we don't know as Americans.
And some coups are good, really. Oh, I'll get hammered for that one. But Berliner said coups are good. Trust me, some of them are good. We trust you on this one. Lisa, always a pleasure. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good to be here.
Making some sense of what's going on in the world. All right, after the break, a dictator surfaces, a journalist freed, and another shot at pro-democracy in the country we just talked about, China. Think about that for a moment. Actual, real democracy in China? Don't hold your breath, kids. Do hold your breath for this. Spanning the Globe is next when we continue right here on MidPoint, where every day we question everything.